Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the natal chart of Duane Davis, who has been apprehended in the murder of Tupac Shakur. He is someone that had allegedly has been involved in the murder. He may not have been the one that pulled the trigger, but what I saw, based on what I saw on Wikipedia, that he had this is back in like 2018. He stated he was there like in the car when this actually happened. I don't know if he's recanted anything or what he's actually stating now as far as an involvement, but there's at least at this point in time, based on the fact he was apprehended, that there was he at least had figured somewhat prominent in this in Tupac Shakur's death, his murder. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Duane Davis's natal chart and see maybe some transits that are going on now and that transpired at the time of Tupac Shakur's murder, and how these are all intertwined, and what this has, and how this could be connected with the death of Tupac Shakur. Now the thing is, when I look at first off, um, according to Wikipedia.org, Duane Davis is born on June 14th, 1963, Compton, California. I don't have a time of birth for Duane Davis, so of course I had to improvise once again and do a solar/sunrise chart um, for him. So he's, of course, his sun sign is Gemini. Moon is in Pisces, and of course, because I don't know the time of birth, I don't have an ascendant for him. So I just the thing about this is interesting because him being, first off, the Sun in Gemini and Pisces Moon, it's obviously, it's a big disparity, in the energies of the conscious self and the unconscious self. Sun in Gemini is very, very loquacious, more outgoing, can be contradictory, but very mobile. And the Moon in Pisces, it's more about the emotional need for isolation and seclusion, solitude, drifting to their own fantasy world, relaxing. Where the Sun in Gemini, the Sun being the basic fundamental character, is more vivacious and more restless, where the Moon in Pisces is more about resting. But what find interesting is that his Sun in Gemini is close to Tupac Shakur's Sun in Gemini. Basic characters similar, well, I should say basic characters the same, both the Sun, both being in the same sign of Gemini. And when you have the Sun, conjunct the Sun in synastry, it can be, some cases, you're talking about conjunctions or neutral aspects that could have good and bad qualities in them. But the Sun conjunct the Sun in a negative manifestation can be about, ego, clashes of ego. And this is about, one, Sun and Gemini may want to outmaneuver the other person, and also in doing things. I don't know if there may have been some jealousy of Duane Davis toward Tupac Shakur, means because of Tupac Shakur lyrical ability. Gemini is sign connected, with words, speaking, diction, and the thing about this is too, is my understanding is that Duane Davis, according to Wikipedia, and I guess whatever, on the web, when you search reasons for this was apparently some kind of retaliation. As far as the murder goes, retaliation, vengeance, killing, because I know Davis had gotten jumped, or Fred, I think it was Davis. You have to confirm that on the internet, but I believe Davis had gotten jumped, and this was something where there was a retaliation for this by killing Tupac Shakur. Now again, Duane Davis was not, he is not, I believe he has stated that he had actually murdered Tupac, but apparently there was somebody else that had been involved in it too. But Duane Davis has claimed, at least his contention is that he was a passenger in the vehicle of, of the vehicle that had pulled up by Tupac Shakur's vehicle, and with the person that, in the person that was in that vehicle that pulled up to Tupac Shakur's vehicle, a person from that vehicle had shot Tupac, but he was in that car, but not the shooter that was in the car, is what I'm saying. So anyway, the thing about this too is the when you look at this, it's interesting because I mean I don't know and we don't know. I mean, as far as best of my knowledge, Tupac Shakur's birth time has not been verified. Some, including myself, speculate he had a cancer ascendant. Now, whether you use the solar sunrise, chart for Tupac, which would put, the ascendant at the same spot as the sun sign, or you were to put a Cancer ascendant on the first house cusp, as far as a rectified or speculative chart for Tupac, it would likely put Duane Davis's sun in Gemini in that 12th house of hidden enemies. So this is something too I wanted to say about this. What I noticed about Duane Davis's chart is that he has Mars conjunct Pluto. And naturally, this could be about vengeful actions and anger. Pluto is connected with vengeance, murder. Mars, of course, is volatility and anger. Being in Virgo, a murder that was, of course, something volatile, involved gunfire, which is Mars, something that may have been planned in a very methodical and systematic manner with a lot of that meticulous attention to detail. And the fact that Uranus is involved in a stellium with Mars and Pluto and Virgo, it's the fact that this may have been gang related because Uranus is connected with groups, clubs, and organizations. Um, the thing right now, what interesting transit that Duane Davis is experiencing at this time, he has transit Saturn opposing his Uranus. And Uranus in astrology is connected with freedom and independence. And Saturn, of course, has a connection with authority. So this is where in restrictions. So in being in Pisces, the sign of incarceration and imprisonment. So naturally there's sorrow connected with imprisonment, which is opposing Uranus, which is about freedom. So it's not surprising that his freedom at this point in time was going to be inhibited and restricted at this time with that opposition from transit Saturn to his natal Uranus. Now, another thing, as far as any other transits may go at this time, well, I noticed that in the solar sunrise chart, transit Uranus is in Duane Davis's 12th house, which is a transit, of course, which could restrict and limit freedom and independence. The 12th house is also the house of imprisonment and incarceration. So the freedom, of course, Uranus being strongly affected by imprisonment, confinement, incarceration. And another thing too, what I noticed as far as a transit on the day on Tupac Shakur's murder, transit Pluto in Sagittarius was at least making a loose opposition to the Duane Davis's natal Mercury, which is likely in Taurus depending on birth time. Now, Pluto, of course, is connected with well, I should say also too, Pluto was actually transit Pluto, I believe, it being in Sagittarius was like 01 degrees Sagittarius at the time, was also opposing the Venus in Gemini in Duane Davis's natal chart. So that's really where you have that opposition connected. Pluto is again connected with vengeance, it's murder, death, opposing Venus, which is associated with compassion, which would have a connection with love and compassion, I would say. So anyway, so you have that opposition there. And Just trying to see if there's anything else of any any significance as far as transits go, and Duane Davis being apprehended for the murder of Tupac Shakur. Well, transit Neptune is currently in the 10th house, the solar 10th house of Duane Davis. Neptune again is connected with incarceration and imprisonment. He's gaining, of course, notoriety and recognition for being in prison at this time. In his natal chart as well, he has, based on the solar sunrise time, he has Chiron conjunct the moon. And Chiron in Pisces, and it's in Pisces, Chiron in Pisces by itself can indicate, more suffering through matters connected, with imprisonment and incarceration. Then it's conjunct the moon. The moon actually has a connection with the public, so there was not really that surprising that he did, that he was going to be, somewhat publicly recognized in getting when he would be arrested, and there would be more suffering in connection with this, with Chiron being involved. Now, another thing too, and I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that's notable in this chart. Well, Duane Davis, has his Mercury in Taurus, and I don't know this 100%, but if he was born really late in the day, I'm thinking his Mercury would likely be in Gemini. But if it is in Taurus, it would show thinking that could be very stubborn, obstinate, persistent, and he would be likely one to maybe hold on to a grudge a little bit more so than if the Mercury being in Gemini, because Taurus energy is really may take some time to forgive and forget. So, but it does tell me that his thinking is, Mercury is in Taurus, it would be a little bit more stubborn, I would say, as opposed to if his Mercury was in Gemini. So I'm just trying to see if there's anything else I could add as far as any transits or natal placements connected with Duane Davis's chart. At that time, well, what I want to say as well is that the South, at the time of Tupac's murder, transit Neptune in Capricorn at the time was, had already been separated from Duane Davis's south node. It was 5 degrees, like around 5 degrees separation, so it wasn't really conjunct, but it was in relatively, transit Neptune was in relatively close proximity to his natal south node. And it tells me that at that time, or even shortly before that, that he may have been devoid of some kind of compassion and forgiveness, because that's what Neptune is connected with. And Capricorn, of course, is very cold on demonstrative energy, and it's about planning, premeditation. When you have a transit planet, contacting the south node, it can often indicate leaving something behind, going away from something. And in that case, unfortunately, maybe this manifested in going away from any kind of compassion or forgiveness. So the thing is, I would say it looks like that's about it as far as anything, as far as natal placements and any transits at the time that was, it's tied in, this arrest or the murder of Tupac Shakur. Well, another thing too I want to add, though it's generational, it may not be much significance, but transit Pluto, as many of you may know, is in Capricorn and it's retrograde, and it's not surprising where it's like we're going back to a, going back to a murder that happened many years ago. One that was orchestrated with, was planned, which many murders are premeditated. Capricorn is the sign of premeditation and planning. Pluto, of course, is connected with murder. Jupiter, I believe right now, is retrograde as well in Taurus, and Jupiter has a connection with the law, and it's going retrograde. It's going back to matters pertaining to the law. And this may have involved money, which is Taurus, and the hit I think may have been involved, may have been something that was monetary that was put on Tupac at least based on the story that Duane Davis has conveyed and given um, to authorities. Well, I think what I want to close, like I said, what I want to close with is that if Duane Davis indeed was involved in this, and they could actually prove, corroborate who the shooter was, then we'll hit a point then in time where there'll be closure to Tupac's death, and that people can now, the family, close friends of Tupac Shakur can really, they could rest easier a little bit now. I understand it doesn't take back the life of Tupac, and legendary musical artist who died, way too soon. I've talked about this before, that Geminis and Virgos, if they're upset, they tend to dissipate out of our lives quicker than most people, because Gemini and Virgo, of course, are both ruled by Mercury. Mercury is connected with the wind. It's like they come and go like the wind, sadly. And Tupac was only like, I forget how old he was. He was like 26 at the time, I think, when he passed 20. I don't know if he's 25, 26 years old. He was born, I think, in 1971. So, I mean, if this happened in 1996, he was like 25, because his birthday, I know, was June, I believe, 1971. So, but this is good. This could be very positive news for the family and close friends of Tupac Shakur. If anybody happens to see this, that any remote isolated chance that somebody close to Tupac, whether it's a family member or a close friend that may know Tupac Shakur's birth time, feel free to contact me on Facebook. You could contact me on Facebook and let me know, if you can, his birth time, because for whatever reason this has been like, baffling mystery, Tupac Shakur's birth time. I'm not really sure why this has been so hard to obtain, why there's been so much, mystique and, mystery surrounding this, but it would be good if somebody can come out and get his time of birth, so we can actually, astrologers, astrology enthusiasts out there and the like can actually see his birth chart once and for all. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.